another connection we have in the SEC that cannot be trumped because he may be the original contributor is Mr. Ben George from Tide 102.9. Ben, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Always a great intro by you, Mark. That's why I keep coming back.
It's the intro.
Yes.
And then I just serve it up and let you take it away from there.
Everything's going pretty well, though. Mark, how's everything with you tonight?
Everything's good. Everything's good. It's called being a facilitator. So that's maybe what I do best at times. So there at Alabama, of course, we're counting down the hours to the National Signing Day that we know is going to be a great class. So unlike a number of programs across the country that are looking at those 5 or 6 guys that they really need to bring in to have a top 15 class or top 30 class, and if that doesn't break right, then it suddenly becomes a number 50 or 75 class. There at Alabama, it's going to be the number 1 or 2 class in the country, but will it be an all-time great class? Ben, anything in regards to your thoughts about the recruiting class where it stands now, if there's anything to be updated at this point?
Well, it's another really good class. I mean, obviously you mentioned that Alabama and Ohio State going neck and neck, just depending on how they close. Alabama already have 25 commitments. I know that they might lose 1 or 2, either grades or somebody decides they want to switch. But they'll still pick up a few more guys as well. I think the biggest thing for Alabama is they've got some really, really elite players. Najee Harris is one, the running back who can come in and compete next year with him. We talked about that last week. You also have an offensive lineman, Alex Leatherwood. Alabama's going to need some guys to step in. You lose Cam Robinson. They got to shore up that guard position, so any offensive lineman they bring in will be a big help. And then you have Dylan Moses, a guy that was recruited since 8th grade. When Les Miles and Nick Saban both offered him, a kid from Baton Rouge who transferred to IMG Academy. He's the next great linebacker. So there's some really, really top-level talent in this class. I think the biggest thing, though, for Alabama is they need to close with defensive linemen. I think only 1 in the class so far. That's really the only position right now, maybe besides the kicker, that Alabama really needs because they lose a number of guys. They still have a number of players there waiting to step in, but you got to keep that next wave if you want to keep it as deep as it has been, especially to be able to rotate guys out like Nick Saban's been known to do in recent years. So overall, I mean, another great class. I don't know if it's an all-time great. I think it's pretty close depending on how they close. They get another 5-star or 2. It could be. Definitely one of his top 3, I believe.
Ben, is there any kind of trend to where these kids are coming from? So Alabama high school football, if it hasn't changed in the last 15 years since I was down there, is extremely strong, but there is limited population. So you don't have the per capita effect that you do in Florida and especially Texas and California, but the high school football is extremely strong. Alabama can obviously go pretty much wherever they want and grab talent for the most part, but is there any specific place, any areas that these kids come from in addition to the great state of Alabama?
I think you've seen a couple of trends. I think South Florida has been a place that Alabama really had never gotten into a whole lot, but recent years, you've had Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, and now Jerry Jeudy, another kid that's coming out of there. So there's some really good young talent coming out of South Florida. I think they just offered a kid or picked up a kid, one or the other, from South Florida for the 2018 class. So that's become a little bit of a pipeline for Alabama. Then you also have Louisiana. I mean, we know Nick Saban's got into Louisiana a good bit, having his background there at LSU. But they never really seem to be able to get all the top players, right? I mean, they'd be able to get, 3 or 4 guys that were really solid, but LSU still kind of had their pick. We've seen that kind of change, especially with the turnover at head coach with the Tigers. We've seen Alabama be able to go in there and pick up a few more guys that maybe they wouldn't have before. Texas is still a place that Alabama's been able to get some guys that they hadn't really before, as consistently as they are now. They seem to get a couple of guys out of Texas that have been pretty strong. So the one that might be closing up a little bit, the pipeline is Atlanta in the Georgia area. With Kirby Smart over there putting together a heck of a class that's right there on the heels of Alabama and Ohio State. He might be closing those doors a little bit because Alabama, when Nick Saban came in, started getting into that area a lot more, and there's a ton of talent in Atlanta and the surrounding areas. So maybe that one will shrink a little bit. I mean, Nick Saban will still have his pick of some of the players, but he might not be able to get everyone he wants.